Lights out and away we go!
Welcome back to the Lights Out F1 podcast. I'm Patrick.
I'm Claire.
And today, I actually don't have an agenda to talk about, so everything doesn't matter. We're going to talk about F1, okay?
We're going to talk about F1, so
Yeah.
I'm good with that.
All right. Well, today, liveries came out. Let's start off with McLaren, since obviously your favorite.
Sure, but you didn't even introduce our third co-host.
Oh, sorry. Lou's here. Lou, anything? All right. I guess nothing for now, but I'll tell you later.
Yeah. So
McLaren's
today, McLaren and Aston Martin.
Yeah.
So basically, they just got rid of some of the orange and added more black. Wait, they got rid of some of the blue, added orange and black.
Okay. Do you like it?
Personally, I like the rear wing as like their powder or baby blue, whatever.
Do they still have that like pixelated sponsor?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. It's even more prominent on the rear wing.
Oh wow.
I think.
We don't really have to talk about Aston Martins. It's the exact same car. You couldn't tell me something changed even if you pointed it out. Everything's in the same spot, like from the cognizant to the arm cuts. It's the exact same. Also, in case you guys are wondering why it seems like we're talking about this way out of order, it's because we lost like an entire hour's worth of recording yesterday because the audio wasn't working properly.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why this get released a little bit later than usual. But yeah, back to this. So outside of that, we got another driver added to the F1 Academy.
We did? Who is it?
Yes, it is a German driver. She is 24. She actually raced in F4 British and German, I think.
Nice.
And she's very happy. She's racing with Prima, and she said she's happy just because the machinery is going to be similar to F4,
Mm-hmm.
which obviously she has a lot of time in. She also raced in endurance racing and something else, and so she comes in with a plethora of experience, probably like a Nick DeVries, where a lot of different types of championships he raced in.
That's cool. I hope she does well.
Yeah. So we have 5 out of 15 drivers in the grid for the Academy right now, which means either nobody's saying yes or they're doing some very intensive scouting.
Yeah, I think they want this to go well, so they want to pick the best and most deserving females. So maybe they're just taking their time with it.
Yeah. It kind of makes me wonder, though, if they're really looking for the best drivers, why hasn't Abby Pulling gotten a spot? I think that's her name. The British 19-year-old that everybody's looking out for.
Maybe she wants to drive somewhere else, and she's...
I guess, yeah. But I think like this, if her goal is to make it to F1, like a lot of people are assuming, she hasn't openly said that, of course, but a lot of people are assuming that the primary goal for even female racers right now is to reach F1. Then this would be the most obvious step. So either nobody's reached out to her, or she hasn't accepted any offers yet.
Maybe she's still just waiting to accept and mulling it over.
Gotcha.
Because it doesn't make sense that they wouldn't offer it to her.
Yeah. Another thing I'm curious about is a lot of teams are aware of how good of a driver she is. But
she hasn't gotten any reserve roles.
She has not gotten any reserve roles or even the academy role in the team.
Strange.
I know it's hard to get academy roles, but like Williams obviously has Jamie Chadwick. Ferrari has 2 people in there. They have a 15-year-old and a 13-year-old. I don't remember the names, but they both won their respective championship last year.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think Mercedes has any. Red Bull has 2.
Women?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't know any of their names,
Mm-hmm.
but hopefully as the F1 Academy and as the female drivers in general start to make names for themselves, they can become just like F1 drivers and also know the names of them. Even the F2 drivers, we know a lot of the names of, right?
Yeah.
Speaking of F2, all the seats are filled. Looking to be a very stacked grid this year. We've got the likes of Oliver Behrman, who did fantastic in F3 last year. Arthur Leclerc is in there. Obviously, Jack Doohan's still in here, and he's probably one of the favorites. Teo Porcher is not on the grid anymore because he is officially the reserve driver for Alfa Romeo. Other big names: Federico Vesti, Richard Verschoor, Victor Martins. A lot of big names in the F2 grid right now. Kind of brings up the question: what happens with the F2 drivers? Because F1 is so congested with talent.
Yeah. It's always kind of like that, though.
Mm-hmm.
So the cream of the crop, as they say, the best of the best, they will make their way into F1 eventually. Like Nick DeVries, it might just take some maneuvering around, I guess.
Do you think that maybe like there aren't enough seats in Formula One?
Yeah, perhaps, but I mean that's the motorsport, right? Like it's the best of the best, so they're not trying to be huge. They're just trying to be exclusive and have the best drivers on the grid competing for.
Yeah. One could say that Formula Two is arguably like one of the second strongest, if you will.
Yeah.
Just because like only the most talented drivers
So,
are still in
yeah.
the weight there.
I find it very cool and interesting, but also kind of like worrisome that like Oliver Behrman, he's so young.
17.
17?
Yep.
Okay, yeah. So he's 17.
Yep.
So he needs to spend like at least 2 years, maybe even like. I feel like he might be in like a weird spot where he doesn't get a good drive.
Well, he does have a good F2 team he is under. A very big name. I think he's driving for Prima, but don't quote me on that. Also, he's turning 18. And assuming he does a miracle and wins F2, people would probably start placing him like about as good as Oscar Piastri, maybe a little less because he didn't win F3.
Yeah.
But he's a very talented driver. I mean, I think he came only 3 points behind the champion of F3, and I think that was Isaac Ajar, who's also in F2 this season. There are so many talented drivers in F2, actually. And it's like, every year we know that there's probably going to be a driver who's moving off of F1. Next year it might be Yuki, just because obviously he's having not the greatest time in Formula One. Obviously, Lewis might be moving on from the sport next year. We're not sure about that one. He hasn't signed a new contract, so nothing's solidified. I can see him in the sport for more years, but no contract yet. And I don't know. It's very interesting, just because like every year you get maybe one slot that opens up, and a lot of times it's previous F1 drivers that teams are eyeballing, especially teams at the bottom of the grid who are looking for just an experienced driver.
Yeah.
I guess primary example here is Haas, right? They got rid of Mick Schumacher and then just picked up Hulkenberg instead of picking up a new talent. And obviously, Günther Steiner just wants a proven driver, but that's what a lot of the Latifi teams want right now.
Yes.
So, do you think there's a way that they fix this dilemma, or is it a dilemma at all? Do you think maybe Andretti's 2 seats that might be coming in?
I think that would be a great way. Well, yeah. I mean, I think 1 or 2 teams entering the sport in 2026 would be good, because that opens up so many more opportunities for possible, reserve roles as well.
Yeah.
And just like people that want to be working in the sport, like I think it's good for it to grow. So yeah, I think more seats would be good, just because there are so many talented drivers that deserve seats that honestly right now don't have them.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's always the case, but there are a lot of other series to drive in.
Yes.
So,
I mean, drivers often go to Formula E, go to IndyCar.
Even NASCAR.
Even NASCAR, yeah.
I mean,
across
Europe too.
There's a lot of them. Some of them even go to derby racing.
Uh-huh.
I mean, Kimi Räikkönen, he left F1, went to derby racing, and then came back. It's still good.
Yeah.
So,
wonder what he's going to be doing now.
He's actually I think he's one of the managers of the team right now.
Oh?
Yeah. Last I looked, in 2022, he was managing, I don't know if it was a derby team or whatever team it was, but he was managing those. I was like, wow, he seems like the type of person who would be the manager you don't want to talk to.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Just like, if you feel like you're struggling and you're struggling and the worst thing you want is somebody to criticize you, and Kimi Räikkönen's like, hey, you suck, by the way.
Straight face.
Yeah, I mean, that's how he would be, too, I would assume. But yeah, so...
like Seb Vettel was like, after the Race of Champions, he's like, "What, you thought I was retiring? Like,
yeah,
I'm gonna stop. I'm not gonna stop driving."
Yeah.
So he's gonna find a way to drive somewhere.
Yeah. So I saw an interesting little TikTok, and it was somebody reading a bunch of Twitter threads, and then something came up where somebody said that it might be a good idea for it to be mandatory for for the teams to have at least one female driver in their academy.
Yeah, that would be good. I mean, there's definitely the talent out there.
I mean, teams are obviously picking up female drivers, but it's obviously not widespread yet. I don't think McLaren or actually just a lot of teams haven't picked up a female driver yet, which is kind of surprising when you know that talent's out there and how much we're pushing for, female drivers to have that eyes set on Formula One.
Like Aston Martin is doing a good job. But yeah, I think Mercedes might be lacking in that department.
Yeah. There's no female drivers, really. I mean, the last time that Toto had, I think, a female on the grid in any capacity for him was when he was at Williams, and I think he had um, Susie Wolf test out the Williams. And I think that was just one. I don't know if it was during a free practice or if it was during like a open practice some other time, but I think that was the last time that Toto actually had a female on the grid in any capacity. So I think that, the thing is, Lewis is obviously one of the biggest proponents for changing the sport, and his whole thing is he wants there to be more drivers in the grid, and yet he's part of the team that hasn't really been progressive in that manner. And so I'm kind of curious, is that something that he's working on?
It must be.
Yeah, because obviously that's something that you have to work through the whole team and the whole company with, but it can't be something that they haven't been talking about a lot. It's not like there's no German talents or British talents. We already know that a 24-year-old German driver just got signed to the Formula One Academy, and she's not under any team.
Yeah.
I don't see why, maybe Audi would pick her up as they're coming to the sport and they're looking for German drivers, or I don't see why the only other German manufacturer on the grid wouldn't pick her up.
Yeah.
Because a lot of teams have made it very clear that they want drivers for where their teams are from. The only French team on the grid has 2 French drivers, and their reserve driver's Australian. But it's
who's their reserve driver?
Jack Doohan.
Okay.
Yeah. And he also has a very clear goal. Sorry to sidestep the.
No.
Yeah, Jack Doohan has a very clear goal, and it's been set out for him. His goal is to win F2 this year.
Yeah, that's doable. I believe he's a great talent.
It's his second year in the sport, and I think he's probably, I don't want to say he's the most talented driver in MotoGP because that is a lot of people, but he is supremely talented when it comes to it. He has the speed. He got the chance to test out the 2022 Alpine in free practice, I think twice. One of them he had to drop out early just because of engine problems, but he got to test out the car twice. He's very, very talented, and I wouldn't put it past him to actually be the one to win that. Speaking of which, the Formula 2 grid has 22 or 24 cars on it. Have you seen what that looks like?
It's a mess.
It's congested.
Yeah.
So the idea of another team coming into Formula 1, how do you feel about that?
I know. Yeah, that is a problem. Jakob and I have talked about would it just make a bigger midfield? Which yeah, it would.
Maybe introducing another team to the sport. It's not like you'd be introducing another top tier team right off the bat to the sport. It'd be somebody who was to start from the ground up. Yeah.
Yeah. So, you'd probably be in the back of the grid. I'm not really sure what that would do. They would have to think that through before anything.
100%, yeah. But let's just say it's Andretti. They're partnered with Cadillac, and that's the joint bid they had. And I assume that they'd probably have another name on there.
So during a race, I feel like it would be congested, but the midfield already spreads out as it is, so it would just be more first lap mayhem perhaps.
Yeah.
With a couple more variables.
Yeah. Also, so Andretti obviously want to look for a flagship American driver. I think most people know Colton Herta is the first one that comes to mind. What are your thoughts on him coming to the grid before 2026? And if so, who do you think he would come in for?
As we know, AlphaTauri had been eyeing him, right?
Yeah, that was their preferred driver.
Yeah, so, I don't see why that might, why they can't work out again if he gets enough super license points. Or he might just go a different direction, whatever team will pay him as much and actually get him in the sport, because I believe I know he just wants to drive an F1 because of what it is, but he also is very money centered. So
yeah, I feel like a lot of drivers are money centered, but I think just being an F1, not even from just the team, but just being an F1 in general is a massive money move, just because when you're an F1, everybody knows you're in the fastest motorsport in the world.
Yeah.
And I think with that and with the knowledge that you're on the grid, even somebody like let's say Yuki, right?
Mhm.
He comes in, he might not be the best driver on the grid by any margin of the imagination, but he probably has like so many sponsorship deals just because he's in F1.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And I feel like anyone,
Especially across Japan.
oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so let's say AlphaTauri are the ones that get him. I mean, they were eyeing him for the longest time, and having American
or
driver.
Yuki would have to go.
Yeah, but I mean, I think we've all said this year, unless he pulls out some masterclass performance, he'll probably be gone. I think it might be a move to go towards Colton Herta
Yeah,
for that
sure.
seat. I mean, 2 Americans on the grid with 3 American Grand Prix would be
Huge for the sport in America. Anyone who's a Colton Herta fan would instantly jump to Formula One.
Oh,
to watch
100%,
it. So yeah, that would be a move. Especially for Red Bull, thinking about they're very like media centered PR. Like they know what they're doing when they're signing drivers.
But also Helmut Marko, like he's not normally someone who just picks a driver for PR. He picks a driver because he knows how good they are.
I know, but don't you think that like Christian Horner has input in that?
100%, yeah. But I mean, he is their head of like youth development, and So if Helmut Marko is openly saying, "Yeah, I want him,"
then he'll get it.
It happens.
Yeah.
That and also this
so
year.
I could see Colton Herta coming into the sport before 2026 and then making a lucrative move to Andretti.
I think they would try to pull with a lot of money.
Yeah.
Okay, so another thing I'm curious about is we have an IndyCar driver on the grid somewhat in Pato O'Ward, I think that's his name. The driver from IndyCar. He's McLaren's reserve.
Yes.
Yes. What are your thoughts on IndyCar drivers making their way into F1? Because it's obviously not like the most saturated thing on the planet.
I mean, okay, so Pato O'Ward went to Indy because he saw that as a good route to continue motorsport. He's not American.
He's Brazilian.
Okay, there you go. He's Brazilian. So obviously he wants to be in F1, and he saw it as a good way to get into higher motorsport. That he's Brazilian?
Yeah.
Okay. So I see that as a viable way to get through there. So he is a reserve driver, but also Mick Schumacher is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
For
McLaren.
Mick Schumacher is a reserve driver for both teams.
Yes.
That's the only thing that I think is interesting. Teams having more than one reserve driver role.
It makes sense though because Pato O'Ward obviously he's going to be driving for Indy, so
100%.
There are going to be confliction of dates. So when he's not available,
I think that's exactly what we talked about actually.
Yeah,
because
then
Mick
races. Will
reserve driver.
Yes, and you never know. Like obviously his commitment is to Mercedes first and foremost.
Yes, 100%.
So there's always that.
Yeah, so it makes you wonder: do Mercedes have to get themselves like another contingency reserve driver?
They must have.
I think the only team that doesn't really have a problem with that is Red Bull because they already have 2 reserve drivers on the grid.
True. They could just pull up AlphaTauri.
Yeah, most likely it'd be Nick DeVries. And I mean, Christian Horner openly said at the Red Bull car reveal that Daniel, his main thing that he's doing in that third driver role is sim work, getting back up to speed, and marketing.
Not really jumping into the car.
And he mentioned he's like, we have 2 or 3 other drivers already lined up in reserve, which I mean, he's probably talking about the people in the AlphaTauri seats.
Yeah.
And I mean, Liam Lawson too. He's a phenomenal driver. But yeah, so I do. I'm talking to Daniel. I do want to see him on the grid again at some point.
I do too.
That being said, I don't see him jumping into that Red Bull seat at any time. A lot of people are like, Max likes Daniel Ricciardo much more than Sergio Perez. I'm not sure if that's the case or not, but
it's also not up to Max.
Yeah, exactly. Although,
I mean, he obviously has a big influence, but he understands what's best for the team. And
100%. Well, Brazil doesn't say that, but yeah.
Well, that didn't really change anything for the team.
No, it didn't. I mean, it created a little bit of a hostile dynamic until they had to publicly say, like, it is what it is. We're still good friends. I think Lou has an opinion on this.
Could. Anyway, but watching Max and Daniel together, honestly, their friendship is actually, I like watching it. I'm not a big Max fan, but I like seeing them together because Daniel makes him likable.
Yes. I think when those two are together, they look so happy.
They both look so happy.
Yeah, I mean, Daniel
Uh,
always looks happy, but
Yeah.
yeah,
No, I know.
except when he's in McLaren.
Except for when he's in a McLaren car. Yeah, but no, I enjoy their friendship, which I find surprising.
Yeah.
And I'm actually happy that Daniel made the move now. Because he was treated horribly by McLaren, and that's just not acceptable. And I don't want him to be having to deal with them when he's not wanted, you know?
Yeah, 100%. So I guess so. Lewis said that Daniel's way too talented to not be able to grid.
I mean, yeah, that's obvious to see.
Yeah, but where does he go in 2024? I can't see him jumping backwards into AlphaTauri if Yuki leaves. That just won't happen.
No, that
He'll
wouldn't
only
make
jump
sense.
into a Red Bull seat. But I think it depends on, first off, how well Checo does, because obviously he's got a 2-year contract now.
Yeah.
It depends on how well Nick DeVries does, and it depends on how good his sim work works.
Yeah. Okay, so let's run through the teams. He wouldn't go to Mercedes ever.
I mean, that's something actually I've been
Not
thinking
ever,
about.
but maybe as a reserve drive.
Let's say Lewis.
Ooh, sheesh.
Let's say Lewis.
Oh, I kind of like this.
Yeah. Let's say Lewis retired, right? And Mercedes wouldn't have the need to pull up a young driver yet because they already have a super talented young driver.
Yeah.
So a driver with a different type of experience when Lewis coming in. And also, it's not like Daniel hasn't been linked to Mercedes in the past.
Yeah, no, they wanted him.
Yeah.
And he kind of probably wanted more of a PR role anyway this year.
100%, yeah.
An easy year.
Seeing him maybe give more experience to George Russell at Mercedes, it would be so weird to see him at Mercedes. You know?
That would be so weird. It does not match his personality
It
at
does
all.
not.
But
it's kind of weird because you feel like teams, like drivers, match team personalities.
yeah, I mean, well, Daniel has moved around a lot,
Yes.
but I honestly just can't see him in a Mercedes.
Yeah, that's true.
But that sounds like a plausible idea.
Let's see. Red Bull obviously he's driven there, but there's a lot of things that play into that. I think Ferrari did talk to him while he was, looking for a seat. But I think the big problem there is
Who's gonna
exactly
go?
who do you get rid of? Because it's not like Ferrari doesn't have 2 super talented drivers.
Yeah.
And then just moving downwards, Alpine, they have 2 French drivers. They won't want to get rid of that, and they're both relatively young and race winners. So
Can't go back to
they're
McLaren.
probably going to want 2 years to work with that. Will not go back to McLaren after that whole fiasco. Alfa Romeo?
I mean, Daniel Ricciardo and Valtteri Bottas.
Yeah, true.
That would be kind of a cool combo if they
That would be
were
interesting, yeah.
if they were looking in the
more
future
experienced
for
driver.
more experienced drivers. If Joe doesn't perform this year.
I think Alfa Romeo will give Joe as much time as AlphaTauri are giving him, 3 years.
Okay.
Just because they want to see him develop, and it's not like we couldn't see him developing a lot last year.
Now, what if Nico Hülkenberg doesn't live up to his their expectations of him?
That would make sense for us because also Daniel Ricciardo loves America. He said himself, when he hears the American national anthem, he gets hyped, and I'm like, whoa, he's Australian. But yeah, so I could see him as he'd be okay. Let's just get this out there. Wherever Daniel Ricciardo goes, it's massive PR.
Yes, it is.
He has the biggest smile on the grid. He's got the biggest personality on the grid. He practically carries Drive to Survive.
Yeah, we haven't really talked much about Drive to Survive.
I'm just waiting for the season.
Yeah, I know that. But maybe we can talk a little bit about the impact on the sport.
Drive to Survive single-handedly, I think the first 3 seasons kind of flopped, but after 2021,
I think the first season was the best. Obviously, I haven't watched the 2021
biased.
season. Because I didn't want to hear what they had to say about
Max wasn't on.
Max winning. What?
Max isn't on any Drive to Survive season up until this one.
This upcoming one, yes.
Yes, because he was he doesn't want to hear what they have to say about it.
Yeah.
So, quite frankly, I don't blame him, because obviously he took enough BS from Lewis fans.
Okay.
Oh, sure. Lewis takes BS from other people.
Yeah.
Max takes BS from Lewis fans.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of Lewis fans out there.
Me included.
Yes.
You included.
I mean, it's not like I'm not a fan of Lewis, but I'm not going to say I'm not a fan of Max, too.
Well, they're not mutually exclusive, even though the rivalries, they make it out to be.
Drive to Survive. So, I think up until 2021, the seasons didn't really feel good. Season 18, 19, 20, and 21 are the ones they currently have, the 22's coming out. 18, 19, 20, it felt like it was just repeats because it really was. I mean, it was just Mercedes stomping over everybody and people trying to figure out where to go.
But Drive to Survive really focused on the lower end teams.
Yeah, it does.
They focused on
sounds
Renault
it sounds
at
really
first
repetitive.
and Haas. Okay.
Yeah, the 2021 season, you got to see a lot of change because like that was the first season that Carlos Sainz went to Ferrari.
Yeah.
That was the season where Max won, of course, and Checo got to make his get his
Well,
work
it's
out
not their fault that like that's how the seasons went.
Well, of course not. But what I'm saying is like, it's not that the seasons were flops. It's just like the reason people are so much more excited about the sport in America, especially after the 2021 version of Drive to
Well, that's because that was an exciting season.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It wasn't just one person driving off into the sunset. So I think 2022, the season won't be as exciting as the 2021 season, but I do see a lot coming from it because, I mean, this year's racing was just more exciting.
Definitely.
If you take Max out of the equation, there were just so many like good battles this year.
Okay, but then you can say that about any other year that Lewis was
But it's
dominating.
not. Yeah, but it's not the same because those cars sucked at overtaking, and everybody knows it. Like it was one of the biggest things you heard over team radio was that like it's so hard to overtake, and like the turbo hybrid aero cars, it was so stupidly difficult. It's too much hot air, too much dirty air, and it just shred. Like if you stayed within 3 seconds of the person in front of you, your tires were done like way too fast. And like by the time you caught up to somebody, if you passed them, their tires are basically fresh compared to your dead ones.
Okay, fair enough.
Whereas this year's car, the reason you see so many overtakes and people hug so closely is because like they cleaned up a lot of the dirty air that was coming off. Looked like they were over the end plates.
Mm-hmm.
They smoothed out cars, the ground deflect. Like it was just much more exciting racing this year, and so I think it makes for a much better season of Drive to Survive.
Sure, yeah, I'm very excited to watch it.
Yeah.
Also, Netflix is coming out with something similar with golf.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like similar producers, I believe.
Oh, wow.
So I'm very excited to watch that.
Interesting. And in case you guys don't watch golf, go ahead and watch that. Can you drop a name?
What?
Like the name of it?
The name of it? I don't know.
Okay, while you look that up.
Wait, go Chiefs. They just won the Super Bowl.
The Kansas City Chiefs won the Super Bowl. And also, it was interesting, Patrick Mahomes, if you guys don't know, he's the Kansas City Chiefs quarterback. Also, we're talking about American football, just so you know. The Kansas City Chiefs quarterback, Patrick Mahomes, had an injured ankle going into it, and then he got an ankle injured during the game. And that was before second half. And the second half, he didn't even look like he had an injury. In fact, he was doing so well, he ran the ball himself for like 30 yards, which is mad by any margin of the imagination. Like, nobody just runs the ball like 30 yards by themselves with what seemed to be like a sprained ankle. But he did it, and he got the MVP of the game, which is huge. Getting MVP of the Super Bowl happens once a year. That's a performance similar to like, I guess you could say, Lewis making a comeback against Max up to the very last race in 2021. Because I think 2021 Max was running away with it until Silverstone. And it was like Lewis had that injured ankle, and then he made the comeback that did it.
Yeah.
So, what's the name?
Full Swing.
All right, Full Swing. It's similar to Drive to Survive, but it's for golf. Want to go over it?
Yeah, sure. It also kind of miraculously gets to cover the new Saudi league.
Saudi Arabia?
Yeah.
Oh,
they basically started a new tour to rival the PGA Tour.
what is PGA?
Professional Golf Association.
Okay.
It's like the main tour.
Okay.
It was until the Saudis poured a bunch of money into it and stole a lot of players off the tour. It's very controversial. Phil Mickelson has been targeted because of what he said about it.
Phil Mickelson?
Legendary golf player.
Okay.
Yeah.
Keep going, sorry.
Patrick doesn't know anything about golf.
I don't know anything about golf.
You're going to watch this.
I've never smelled a club before.
You were calling it a stick this morning.
I did call it a stick this morning.
So Full Swing, I'm looking forward to that.
Yes.
I like watching documentaries, getting to hear from athletes.
Yes. Also, interesting thing, back to Formula One, Jakob, who is not here today, he's actually over there. He's not. Told us about a documentary by Christian Horner, who openly stated that Michael Massey's decision was wrong.
Mm-hmm. Was that he gave a talk at Oxford?
Yeah, it was like 45 minutes long.
Did you watch it?
I watched part of it.
Okay.
Yeah, I went to the most replayed part because there's like, I don't know if you know, but on YouTube now, like if you scroll around on it, it shows you like the most replayed, and the most replayed
Okay.
part is him saying that Michael Massey made the wrong decision in
Oh,
2021.
interesting.
Yeah, and obviously people are like, well, why did you make them give it back to Lewis?
Well, because he wanted to win it.
I don't know. It's like I don't think it's a reversible decision because
No,
there's
it's
too many-
definitely
yeah.
not right now.
Yeah. I mean, we're 2 years out from it now. It's not much more that can happen. Like, obviously, people can be mad about it, and what we all know now, like, we've all known, but now we all know for sure. Like, even Red Bull knows that it was a mistake that can't be reversed. So we have to live with that, and I mean, we live and we learn. Michael Massey's gone.
Yeah, he's gone. The sport is not perfect.
No, it is not.
It's flawed.
Rules and regulations never have been.
Yeah, I mean, it's human error.
Yeah. I mean, but the thing is, like, so yeah, Michael Massey made a mistake there, but I think 2021 was a lot more exciting rule-wise than 2022. I think the biggest place we can look at is Austria 2022 versus Austria 2021.
Okay.
When Michael Massey was the race director, was the race director for however many years he was, he had specific turns on specific tracks where if you overshot the turn, it wouldn't affect you. That wouldn't go to your strikes because.
So there's a happy medium that needs to be found.
Exactly. Whereas this year we had the joint race directors, and they're like, we're just going to be really strict on track limits this year, and man, were they strict! Like, I think Lando put it best. He's like I lost 5 seconds I got a time penalty for 5 seconds because I overshot turn 1. And the thing is, in Austria, of course.
I got some new Lando merch.
Oh, she has new Lando merch. He finally opened up his official store. For those of you who don't know, he also just showed his official crash element for this year.
Yeah, you
And
can buy like
the half size ones.
the replica ones.
Yes.
They're expensive though.
Yes, for like $190 in US dollars and 179 whatever in the
Pounds.
English currency is. Yes, thank you. Okay, back to what I was saying though. Lando said after the race, he's like, I overshot turn 1, and it's already like bad enough that I lose so much time going over that
Yeah, you don't
huge
need to be
sausage
double
curve.
penalized.
I don't need to be have that exactly. I don't need that 5-second time penalty. And obviously that was that controversial moment by Pierre Gasly where they said he overshot the track, deleted his qualifying time, would have put him into Q2, but he didn't make it there because of that. And so he protested, and he got penalty points for that, for protesting their decision. Speaking of which, Pierre Gasly has 1 penalty point left before he's disqualified for an entire race.
Yeah, I think that's a bunch of crap. Obviously, I think he's gotten some weird penalty points that he didn't deserve. So
Suzuka being one of them.
So it really sucks. They were saying, I think, before the end of the season, like he should just take his penalty somehow.
100%, yeah.
He should have somehow, but obviously it's kind of weird.
Obviously, you don't want to intentionally take a penalty point.
Yeah, I know, but like to reset it.
Yeah, I think when you switch teams, I don't think that should be something that follows you. And also, I think like last year, I think he got 3 or 4 penalty points, 2 of which shouldn't have been there. The one at Suzuka where he was speeding under a red flag.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is both his team's fault and also the race control's fault because that message wasn't conveyed very properly. And then the other one was speeding over yellow flags when there was a car on the side of the track. And again, that is not only his fault, but also his team's fault and the FIA's fault and the steward's fault for not, conveying that to him. And he explained that they were going to give him 2 penalty points. He still got 1 for it, and I don't think that's fair.
Yeah.
Because
in Suzuka with the whole situation, did he get any? Were they trying to give him penalty points?
They gave him a penalty point for that.
For him not being able to see something on track? It wasn't his fault?
Yes.
That's messed up.
Yes.
That was dangerous, and he got a penalty point for it?
Yeah, he had a whole barge board on his face, and they said he was speeding under a red flag, because the red flag was called right after that. He had, half the barrier stuck over the front of his car, so he couldn't see a thing.
That is ridiculous.
Yes. And then
that is human error at its finest, not understanding these things.
Yeah, I think this year, the rules, they were way too strict on them. I mean, I can understand wanting to, hammer down the rules, especially after a year where, people were mad because the rules weren't upheld. But upholding the rules doesn't mean I think the rules, and specifically in sports, there's some leeway that's supposed to be given to them. I guess one of the most easy things to compare it to is soccer or football in a lot of nations. The handball, where does it constitute being a handball? And they've done so much to try to show hey, this is a handball, this is not. Like if it hits me in the shoulder, does it count as a handball? Or if it hits me in the elbow, does it count as a handball? Right? Because you're still hitting with your arm. And so especially for defenders who like flail a lot when they're trying to defend, if they throw their arm out in a gesture that it's just part of the normal gesture, then it won't count against them. But if it's something where it hits them, like, and they intentionally like open up their whole body, then that counts. Like things like that, where there's got to be some leeway given. This year, I felt like there was no room to struggle with it, and I think that what we had this year versus what we had with Michael Massey, it's like both opposite ends of the spectrum of like too harsh versus too lenient, and there's no in between. I think we need to find that in between.
Yeah, the happy medium.
Yeah. So yeah, Pierre Gasly, 1 penalty point left, and
I want to see him doing well because like last year, just nothing to watch.
He had so much potential, and I think he still does.
Yeah.
He didn't really get much of a shot at Red Bull. They gave him half a season to get acclimated to the car and go just as fast as Max, who's been at the team he was already at the team for like 3.5 years, and then they gave the seat to Alex Albon, and they gave him a year and a half. Which, I mean, sure, yeah, it's a year longer than they give Pierre Gasly, but you're expecting your team to go faster than a generational talent, and I think their problem with everybody was like, you're not as fast as them, but also like you're not even keeping up with them, because oftentimes you'd see them like in point scoring positions that weren't in the top points.
Yeah. And
I think that's what Red Bull want, and I think with Checo they got that.
They definitely
did. But yeah, I think it's so hard being Max's second driver because
of course
you're gonna look bad.
Yeah. I mean, that's what they were saying, about Lewis for the longest time.
Yeah, but then they got Valtteri, and he was like just good enough.
Yeah.
I think Valtteri is more than good enough. I think Valtteri was severely his career got shunted because of his time at Mercedes.
Sure, but he was the one making the decision to.
That's true.
Yeah, he could have moved.
I think the way they did his whole contract situation was
no, that was messed up. Yeah. They would only give him a
1-year contract. They're like, yeah, you can have another year, and if you're good enough, we'll give you another year. It wasn't like a 2-year extension like other teams gave.
No safety. Yeah. No, he was always worried about losing his spot.
Yeah, and then
he should have just moved and gotten a safe contract somewhere.
But the thing is, Toto is also very good with Valtteri.
Valtteri but I don't know why he would treat him like that.
Yeah, I don't know. That's tough. The thing is, I think at the time, Valtteri was good enough to be the number 1 driver elsewhere. Mm-hmm. And I think being stuck at Mercedes as the number 2 for so long, I think that changed his mentality. And obviously, he's got a much bigger role now at Alfa Romeo, but at the time, I think he was good enough where he could have raced for one of the big teams, like Alpine, McLaren,
for sure,
Ferrari, maybe even been Max's number 2. That would have been wild to see Max have Valtteri as a number 2 driver.
That would be interesting.
Yeah, because I think old Valtteri is now Checo at Red Bull.
Yeah.
I think that's an easy comparison to make.
Yeah,
you have one super driver in the form of Lewis, or Max in this case, and you have a really good number 2 driver who brings home points fairly frequently in the form of Valtteri and Checo. And so I think that Red Bull did a good job at finding their version of Lewis and Valtteri, and combine that with the fact that I think they got this year's regulations right. They're set up for what maybe Mercedes did over the past 2 years.
I hope not. All right, any final thoughts?
No, I think I'm good.
Right.
If you guys watched the entire video and made it to the end, in the comments, let me know who you think the strongest current driver pairing on the grid is and who you would like to see as a driver pair in the future. But that's all we got for you guys today. So this is the Lights Out F1 podcast. I'm Patrick.
I'm Claire.
And we'll see you
next time. And this is Louis.
Lou's so tired right now.
He is so tired, but he was a very good boy. He was not running around or anything.
All right, we'll see you guys next time.
Very close into Stoke corner. Yeah, Perez is catching Charles Leclerc. He takes him towards the inside. Perez on the inside. Charles Leclerc gives him just enough space. Can Perez squeeze past? They're going wheel to wheel towards Vale now. Who's going to be last on the brakes? Perez goes off the track. Off goes Leclerc. Through goes Hamilton. Unbelievable stuff coming out of the final corner. Through goes Hamilton. Through goes Hamilton.